Thank you. So we're getting into climate change, a topic we will also tackle with the next guest, which I'm going to introduce with this video. So, with us, Luca Mercalli. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Very well, I would say. Where are you calling from? And surroundings of Turin, Bassa Valle di Susa, my home, of course. Like everybody else, thank you very much for being here with us. So we are getting step by step into the nitty-gritty of this topic. So we've been talking about COVID, of course, innovative projects from all over the world. Once again, everything is being translated into English. And with this chat with you, I wanted to start with this question. There have been studies, recent studies, showing a correlation between global temperature, coronavirus, and temperature in hot countries, for instance, warm countries, cold countries. There are lots of questions about this. But can you tell us something about this? So, your opinion. Of course, this is a very weak hypothesis. It's just an empirical observation that we had. So, since the very beginning of health crisis after China, so Italy, but now all over Europe, Southern Central Europe and the US, all this area is a temperate climate and fresh, cool climate area. Tropical areas where the demographic concentration is very high, and you would expect an even stronger outbreak. They are basically safe. So there's not much more to say. It could just be a delay in the outbreak, or there could be a relationship between the transmission of the infection and environmental conditions. In very cold countries like Russia, for instance, you don't have so many cases of infection. In the tropical area as well, maybe there is a link in terms of infection transmission. In 1 month's time, we will clear up this doubt for sure, because if the virus will not impact in some countries, then we will find out whether there are some geographical and environmental causes for this. It's too soon to say this, of course, or to come up with a truth or a statement, but it's just a track we can follow. In the end, we can also deny everything or demonstrate the opposite, but in the meantime, we're observing this trend. Another question about the climate change. But in the meantime, I want to ask you a question about current data, because by looking at current data, as you can see, the waters are cleaner. There are studies that are demonstrating how the environmental impact in China and Italy has been reduced. Are we learning something from this virus in terms of environmental impact or human footprint on the environment? Well, I would say so. Or do we have to learn a lesson for the aftermath? Well, the basic lesson is that we shouldn't be resuming with the same rules and uses and habits we had before. Of course, the economy was different before the virus. There was an open conflict between the economy and the natural environment. This is something we're aware of. There were lots and lots of studies and also warnings in terms of climate change, biodiversity threats, ocean pollution, plastic pollution, topics that we tackled, but we never really answered to these questions. Now something new came about because something stopped the world economy. We were able to stop the world economy in order to protect higher values like life, health, and we learned that we can do it. So it would be better to do it without such a big threat or a catastrophe like the virus, but maybe doing that by planning and with a reasonable serendipity in order to give up something and keep something else. I think that this is the most important lesson, learning that economy has been ruling us so far too much. The laws governing the world are the real laws we have to take into account. If our choices are always subject to economy, look, for instance, at the delay in implementing self-isolation, for instance, the restrictions. We've been doing this relatively early in Italy, but we could have done it even earlier. And look at the other European countries, which didn't see the problem. I'm not talking about China, but I'm talking about Italy, which is even closer to the other European countries, UK, France, and so on and so forth. They didn't perceive the threat. And on the other hand, they were afraid of copying our procedures in tackling the virus because they were fearing economic consequences. Of course, we will be losing money. It will be an economic catastrophe, but of course, health is even more important. When you have debts, then you can realize it was a big problem. So, economy is not something that we need to serve. Economy has to serve mankind. So, for instance, we can afford a temporary lockdown, a temporary economic stop, because we need to understand what rules are compatible with the environment and mankind. It's not a war we lost. We just ask people to be a bit quieter, to stop their pace or to slow down their pace, especially in the world production, and this brought about the result we've seen before. So an immediate effect in terms of environmental pollution and also in terms of pressure on the ecosystem. So we need to bring together these two visions, a less dominant economy on our choices, so with less impact on our choices, and an economy that is more based on our real needs and mankind that is able to stop or slow down when it is necessary to do so. Can you still hear me? Yes, I can hear you very well. There are some thoughts that I had in this period of time, but I wanted to share them with you. I want to hear your opinion. There's a contrast between the management of the environmental problems and the management of this emergency on a global level. For instance, an absence, a lack of international coordination as far as this topic is concerned. Of course, since many years we've been observing the environmental problems. On the other hand, there was a sort of a neglection approach to what was happening in terms of health emergency. In Italy, for instance, we were considered as crazy, as mad people at the very beginning. And also, if compared to what happened in China. But I think this is the same approach we have in terms of environmental challenge. So the rainforest problem disappeared. Nobody's doing anything about it. I see common aspects in this sense between the health and environmental emergency. Yes, I think the same. But in terms of environmental changes, climate changes, the UN conferences being held over and over again, and nobody came to a final decision in terms of reducing emissions. For climate, this involves the whole country, of course, the whole world, sorry. Some countries, for the COVID emergency, think they can escape the emergency, but nobody can escape climate change because we're surrounded by gas, the atmosphere, and this will impact everybody with no exclusion. So I don't understand why there's no concrete position on this. Maybe the reason for this is that the consequences are more diluted over time. The epidemic is something we're witnessing in an outbreak. In a few days' time, people get ill. They can die in a week's time. When it comes to climate change, everything looks like diluted over time or belated or impacting the future generations. Whereas we know that the climate change is already ongoing and it's similar to an epidemic and it's no less dangerous. The epidemic can end, whereas climate change will stay for centuries. This is something we have to understand. Another message I tried to read out is that the environment is like telling us, humans, you are part of the whole thing. You're part of it. Basically, you can stay home. You are not possessing things. You're just a part of it all. Maybe this is a wrong message I've interpreted, but I think this is something we can learn from this situation, don't you? Well, of course, this comes from one of the fundamental laws of ecology. The mankind is not an alien species of this planet. It's the product of an evolution of the other species on this planet. So it's a sort of result of physical, chemical, biological laws governing the Earth and over the last 4 billion years. And as such, we need to respect these physical laws. We don't have to exploit everything at our own will or pleasure, because this will have consequences like climate change, pollution, we mentioned before, putting our health at risk, of course, or risking losing other species, or diseases, illnesses due to polluting agents that we ingest, for instance, like plastic in the oceans that we're also eating. Everything's connected, but we know this since a century at least. So ecology has been founded around the end of the 19th century. This is something we've known since ages, but we've always been ignoring this for economical reasons, for the economy. So we need to respect the environment, but respecting the environment means using less the resources that we thought were endless. Of course, we need to change this. We need to stop using raw materials and use renewable energies maybe, and reducing waste, of course, because everything that you put under your carpet will come back to you. In terms of climate change, in terms of noxious agents for our health, also in terms of virus. Because the appearance of this noxious virus for mankind is a result of a devastation of natural environments where mankind is in contact, in touch with the wildlife. In that case, you can have species leap. You can either do it in the forest by disturbing or destroying the ecosystems, like Lloyd says in Spillover in the book, which has become a bestseller. It was written in 2013, so we can't say that this book is a sort of novelty, but you can do this in farms, cattle farms, or other farming activities. So, on one hand, science has understood this since many centuries, but this understanding has to be implemented in everyday life, in people's lives. So we are part of a biosphere, and as such, we need to comply with the rules. If we don't comply with the rules, we will have negative consequences for us, ourselves, and for the future generations. Okay, very well. So hopefully we will learn this lesson. Before giving the floor to the next speaker, I'd like to show you a comic that was drawn by Fabiana, our colleague. So you with the flag of the future because you are implementing activities for a better future. So we wanted to show you this image. Thank you very much once again, and take care. Yes, and have a good food for thought session. Thank you very much.